Thanks very much, Will. Just a couple of things that I'd like to highlight this morning before being happy, as always, to take any questions that you might have. So firstly, relating to long-term care, we saw media reports, a couple of different media reports this morning that came out that made it quite clear that even though the warnings had been sounded, the pandemic had already been declared, and notwithstanding a lot of the stuff that Doug Ford did say at the earliest stages of the pandemic, it is appalling to have seen how slowly he and his government moved to actually provide the kind of protection that was needed for the people living in nursing homes across Ontario and for the women and men who work in those nursing homes. And so I just wanted to highlight that, for example, the notion that a series of private for-profit chains were provided with significant tens of millions of dollars in pandemic relief and chose to provide their shareholders with significant dividends while receiving that support from you and I as Ontario taxpayers, support that was supposed to go towards making sure that those living in nursing homes across Ontario had better care, that the people working on the front lines in those homes had proper PPE, had the proper support that they needed. And so I have said repeatedly, and I said again yesterday, if I'm elected premier next year, I will take whatever steps are necessary to make sure that those involved in the private sector would not be in a position to take the kind of relief provided during this pandemic and flow that out to their shareholders via dividends. That to me is just exactly the wrong way to go and not something that I believe is acceptable. I also think we will obviously see more reports later today and later this week from the Commission into Long-Term Care and the Auditor General. And I really believe that Ontarians need to have a very serious conversation about a complete overhaul and a rethink around how we deal with aging and elder care here in this province, not just long-term care, though that is a critically important component, but literally how we can structure a comprehensive system, whether it's long-term care or it's community-based home care, to make sure that those who've literally built our province can grow old and have the kind of dignity and the health and the safety and the economic sufficiency that they need to enjoy their retirement years. The other thing I want to highlight again today, I do this every single day, is a call out to Doug Ford to deliver a real and effective provincial paid sick leave program. It's now been almost a week since Doug Ford stepped to the microphone, apologized to the people of Ontario, shed tears even, and said that he and his government would deliver the very best kind of paid sick leave program. And yet we've seen no real action from this government or from Doug Ford, except writing a letter to the federal government asking them, passing the buck to them, asking them to actually take or provide the kind of leadership that we need here in Ontario. I have made it abundantly clear what I believe the guidelines should be. I believe the science table has said the same thing. Mayors across this region, across this province have called for this kind of support. And yet here we are almost one full week after that tearful apology, and we've seen no real leadership from Doug Ford on paid sick leave. It is never the wrong time to do the right thing. And even though it's late, even though it's 412 days since I first wrote to Doug Ford asking for paid sick leave to be reinstated in this province, I am urging Doug Ford to do the right thing today and announce the specifics of a provincially funded paid sick leave program that would be effective and that would be delivered urgently and immediately to the hundreds of thousands of essential workers in this province who need it so badly. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, just a reminder to please raise your hand using the Zoom function or write to the chat if you have a question. And the first question is from Steve Paikin at TVO.
Good morning again.
And good morning, Steve.
I know the NDP's position is to nationalize all long-term care homes in the province. Is that your position?
You know, I've gone through a series of consultations on this. I've spoken to so many who work on the front lines. I've spoken to family members of those living in nursing homes, certainly heard from a lot of different kinds of operators. Ontario Liberals are still in the midst of our platform consultation, but I will say it's becoming increasingly clear that it's just not a good situation when you're in a world where for this kind of care that is so critical and so badly needed, mixing the notion of profiteering up against care, to me, it's just inconsistent. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think you can flick a switch and make it happen responsibly overnight. But I believe that I believe that it's not compatible to have in the long term, to have the opportunity for private interests to supersede the kind of care that these homes should be providing to the seniors that we have in this province. So stay tuned for more details. But it just seems to me that it's inconsistent, incompatible, and not something that should be sustained.
Follow up.
Sounds like, thanks, Will. It sounds like you are open to having the province of Ontario take over all of the long-term care homes in the province. Do I infer that correctly?
I'm definitely open to a system that emphasizes and prioritizes care over profit. Again, I don't think those two are compatible. And so stay tuned for more details on this, but I just look, all of the information and evidence that I've seen, and I'm sure the reports that we're going to hear today and on Friday will emphasize this point. When you try to mix those two, profit and care, like care for human beings in nursing homes, it's just a really toxic place to be. And I don't think Ontario should be doing it that way. I don't think it can happen overnight. I think there might have to be some kind of transition, but I really do want an overhaul and a complete rethink about how we deal with elder care, not just long-term care, but elder care in Ontario. There are places around the world that do this so much better than Ontario. They're not wealthier than we are. They're not more creative than we are. They've just gotten it right, and they got it right years ago. And so I want to look to those examples. But again, stay tuned for more details in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no other questions on the line. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.